everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi on this Tuesday, March 6th, 2018, coming up on 6:12 Eastern Time. We are in the midst of trying to decipher this puzzle that is going to be this next winter storm, Noreaster, that will be impacting our weather, and we're going to take a look at a few things that are going on, and I'm going to give you my snowfall forecast, which is kind of different from the Weather Service, and my justification for it. But first off, let me just review. There have been a couple of changes for those of you who are watching locally in the New York, New Jersey, Long Island area. We do have, and also don't want to forget you folks in eastern Pennsylvania and in southern New England and the Hudson Valley. So we have a large area of winter storm warnings that have been posted. And one of the changes, it's hard to really see on this map, but Long Island, most of Long Island, Nassau and northwestern Suffolk County were under a winter storm warning. Though the winter storm warning has been changed to a winter weather advisory for northwestern Suffolk and also for southern Nassau. It remains a winter storm warning in northern Nassau County. In southeastern Suffolk County, there's nothing at all going on except a wind advisory. In the meantime, in New Jersey, we've added the winter weather advisories for the counties south of the Turnpike, so that's basically Monmouth County down into parts of Burlington County and on south and west of there. Winter storm warnings for all of eastern and northeastern Pennsylvania, all of the Hudson Valley and the Catskills, all the way up to the Canadian border. Also up for Vermont, New Hampshire, most of Massachusetts, except for the eastern part of the state and the southeastern part. And there's a mix of winter weather advisories up for Rhode Island, winter storm warnings up for Connecticut. Now, I'm of the inclination here with this weather system that warm air is going to come in to some degree. How warm remains the big question. And I think what I'm going to do is I'll first bring up the National Weather Service forecast snow maps, because they have changed a little bit here. I'm going to start with New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. So going for 12 to 18 in the Poconos as far south as Allentown. And then it starts to, the amounts go down from there, 4 to 6 for Philadelphia, 8 to 12 for Reading, and as you head back west toward Lancaster and toward Harrisburg, and then the amounts tail off. 6 to 8. You start to go north and west of the Turnpike, 6 to 8. As we move up through Somerset County, northern Middlesex, and then on up through the northwestern counties, 12 to 18 for Sussex and Warren. This is what the Weather Service is doing, 8 to 12 for Morris County. Now, I'm going to switch offices. We're going to go to what we call the New York office. It's actually based in Upton, New York, which is in central Long Island. And there have been some adjustments here. And a lot of the adjustments for Long Island, less than an inch on the east end, 2 to 3 in West Hampton, 3 to 4 Islip, 4 to 6 Farmingdale, 3 to 4 for Kennedy. So lower, obviously, along the South Shore. And then you get into those higher amounts where the winter storm warning is up for northern Nassau, talking about 4 to 6. And then you start to see 6 to 8 in and around the city, 8 to 12 just inland of the coast, and then 12 to 18 once you start going up north of 287 and into the Hudson Valley. In Connecticut, southeastern Connecticut tails off, 4 to 6 as you get toward New Haven, 6 to 8 to Bridgeport, and then those amounts go up as you go north of 95 and particularly north of Route 15. For Boston, we'll take a look at what Boston is doing, because they cover the rest of Connecticut. And they have 6 to 8 in the northeastern corner, and you can see those amounts tail off as you move into Rhode Island and into southeastern New England, which into southeastern Mass, which gets nothing. And then once you go west of Bedford and Lawrence, you're talking about amounts of 12 to 18, and even some 18 to 24 inch amounts that are being forecast for western Massachusetts. And we'll jump now to Albany, ALY. Is, whoops, hopefully didn't mess that up there. And here's Albany's forecast, which really hasn't changed too much from yesterday. So basically from Poughkeepsie on northward, they're going 12 to 18. pretty much up the Hudson Valley, and you get go west toward Albany. The Catskills 18 to 24 on top of the 30 inches that they just got 5 days ago. Amazing for them. And we'll go into Binghamton so we can take a look at the rest of New York State and Pennsylvania. Oftentimes Binghamton is slow. Binghamton is slow on the uptake as far as updating is concerned, but you can see they're going for 8 to 12 in the northeastern corner of Pennsylvania. You start getting back to Scranton, 6 to 8, 4 to 6 further west, and then the amounts will tail off around Williamsport, 3 to 4, and then 2 to 3 inches as you go further west from there. And one more, we'll go to south central Pennsylvania, as we do have some viewers here from there, and Lancaster, Lebanon, Pottsville, 8 to 12 inch band, 4 to 6 back to Harrisburg, 6 to 8 for York, and then going back further, the amounts go down as you move west toward Chambersburg and on west of there. So that pretty much gives you the Weather Service's picture as far as the snow is concerned. I've got my own view on this, and I have to tell you, I did this forecast with a lot of discomfort because in both directions. Having models that I've been using that have worked well in the past, conflicting, the RGEM and the NAB, particularly along the coast, makes this very, very difficult. And I'm just going to tell you that that zone that exists between the line, the dark blue line that I have, which marks the edge of 5 to 7, which I've included New York City, northeastern New Jersey, and the lower Hudson Valley in that. I think, you know, if the atmosphere is even so much as a degree colder, we could shift that line 30 miles to the southeast, and that would put more of Long Island in play. So I basically went mostly rain for the Jersey Shore from southern Monmouth County southward, eastern Long Island mostly rain, southeastern New England mostly rain. And then notice I'm lower in Connecticut. I'm betting to some degree that warm air comes in from the east with the low kind of pinched back to the west and a little bit more of a coast-hugging track. I really was banking on the idea that this low would be a little further offshore, but you know, after a while you have to kind of stop fighting what the models are doing. I'm thinking, you know, the models have been leaning more westward. I still think there's room for error. I also didn't go in for the huge amounts, mainly because the models were kind of trending back a little bit in terms of the precip totals, and they started kind of going the other way. So I think this sort of lays out a conservative picture for most of my area. For the area that a lot of the spots that the Weather Service has 12 to 18, I kind of broad brush this into 6 to 12 or higher. I have this view with locally higher amounts. I may wind up having to redo this all over again tomorrow when I look at what's going on. They did actually send a plane into this to drop to get some data that will be in the next run of model guidance, which will begin in about 2 hours or so. So it'll be interesting to see what, you know, if that data changes anything. Oftentimes it doesn't, but sometimes that little extra data changes a couple of things, and it might have an impact on somebody's forecast along the way. Starting to see some lead moisture moving in across Pennsylvania. Some of this is snow, some of this is rain, and we are also seeing a little arm of precip going down into Delaware. To the south and east, as we do move down into Virginia, North Carolina, this is the larger area of rain. It actually represents the developing secondary low, which is developing a lot faster and a lot further south than what models were giving it credit for. So I might be able to pick it up better on this full U.S. view. We'll bring this up. Well, that's weird. Let me see if I can rotate that 180 degrees again. Oh, it's weird. I don't know how this thing got rotated backwards. Oh, this is funny. I don't want to look at this backwards. All right. Bear with me. This is really funny. Oh boy. I'm going to try it one more time. There we go. I took a chance. I took one of the other choices. But you can see the area in the south, off the Carolinas down through Virginia. There's a surface low that's developing in northeastern Georgia, moving into South Carolina. This represents the secondary low, and that's a pretty well-defined signature here on the satellite, on the radar, excuse me. And then you have the upper air support and the primary low that's dropping into Illinois and Indiana. That's going to weaken, and I've been saying all along that this applied with the nor'easter, and it applies in this case as well. The rapid development of the secondary is going to be key to the snow amounts, especially for coastal areas. Not so much inland areas. Inland areas, I think, are going to get whatever they're going to get regardless. But it's the coastal areas that are problematic, where that rain-snow line just winds up going back and forth, back and forth. So we're going to start with the HRRR model tonight. And we have it here. We'll bring up the northeast, bring it up nice and close. So remember, this model only goes out 18 hours. And we are now, during the overnight hours, coming up toward 7 a.m. And you can see the surface low there. It is pinned back right along the Delmarva Peninsula and straddling the coastline. Snow through most of New Jersey. It's rain over Long Island here at this point, but we're only at through 10 o'clock in the morning. The heaviest precip with this is going to be probably from noon to 7 p.m. And I jumped back one model run to match it up, and you start to see these darker blues showing up across central New Jersey. So that is where we're going to see some of the heavier snow bands, and I would not be at all surprised, given the vertical motion that's being forecast by some of the models, that we could wind up with some thunder snow out of this when this arm lifts up toward the New York City area, down into the lower Hudson Valley, eastern Connecticut, and even over Long Island. It's going to be interesting to see how those dynamics play out. The RGEM model, and actually before I do that, I haven't seen the new high resolution RGEM, which we could take a look at here. So there's your matching surface low at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. You can see where this model has the rain snow line. You see those darker blues here? This is all heavy snow and some banding. The surface low is sitting just east of Cape May at this point at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The rain, the light rain, as that heavier precip comes in and begins to cool the column down, changes over to snow over Long Island, and it's heavy snow across northern New Jersey and in the Hudson Valley. And that continues. So see how close that rain snow line is. It's so tenuous. And in fact, here at this point at 4 in the afternoon, it's heavy rain in Suffolk County and it's heavy snow in Nassau County back to New York City, getting clobbered in these dark blues. And if this radar presentation that the high resolution HR DPS model shows works out like this, somebody's going to get hammered with some very heavy snows. And in fact, even another heavy band forms tomorrow evening along the New Jersey coast, if that's right, on the backside of this surface low as it starts to move to the east. Just out of curiosity, I'm sure this bombs it out with some big snow amounts here. And you can see it gives a large area of a foot plus, even into Long Island, into western Long Island and western Connecticut. This is very tough. This is 10-to-1 ratio. I don't know if we're going to have 10-to-1. It may be on the order of 8 or 7-to-1. That's another reason why I kind of held back on amounts when I looked at the NAM positive snow growth map. This is the 10-to-1 ratio, but when we put the look at the huge difference, by the way. You're going to see this humongous difference here in terms of this map and the positive snow growth. Look at that difference. It has, if it's 10-to-1 ratio and every flake were to stick, you would wind up with a foot to a foot and a half over this huge area here, northern New Jersey, back to just north of New York City, and in the Hudson Valley. But I don't have I don't know that that's going to be the case. Look what happens when we switch it to the positive snow growth, which is supposed to take into account snow ratios, melting, and everything else. I mean, barely several inches, a few pockets of 4 to 5, with the bigger amounts up in the elevated areas in northeastern Pennsylvania and on up through the Catskills. I mean, that's a huge, huge difference. You want to have at least some confidence to be able to say that, okay, I get X amount of liquid precipitation and convert it all to snow, it's going to amount to this much of snow. I don't know we can do it this time around. Notice that the NAM 3 kilometer produces some 2-inch plus rain amounts out of all of this. So if that were to fall as all snow, someone's going to get buried for sure. But I have a lot of misgivings and a lot of uncertainty regarding the fact that these temperatures are going to be tenuous. How much of that cold air is going to really be able to work its way down to the surface? Here's the standard 12-kilometer NAM, also pretty generous with rainfall amounts, 1.5 to 2 inches of melted liquid. The snow map on the NAM, there you can see it, just north and west of the coast, and even into parts of western Long Island is where the easternmost edge of 6 is. But again, look at the positive snow depth. It's much less. So I think the best way to approach this is if you want to take those 10 to 1s and then cut them back by at least a third, or maybe even a half in some places. That's a big factor in my decision to be as conservative as I decided to be with all of this. The late afternoon GFS run, we'll show you right after I run through the NAM here. So there's your secondary. The NAM on the late afternoon, when I looked at some of the temperature profiles, looked maybe a shade colder in and around New York City, just a shade, but it was, might be enough to make a difference for somebody. And here's the NAM's view at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, that dark blue area, probably some thunder snow in that. There's your low center. Look how close it gets to the south shore of Long Island. If it were 60, not even 60 miles, if it were maybe even 30 miles southeast of this position, this could make a huge difference. And one of the things I want to point to as well, and this is, if you look at the structure of the isobars, there's the low that the model shows east of the Jersey coast, but the isobars are stretched out into the echoes that you see in yellow and orange. There's a second surface low here, so you wonder whether the model is, is it putting its emphasis on the wrong low? Is that low that's further east going to be the one that's more important? The Canadian today, for example, took the low straight out to the east by tomorrow evening, and then you can see it's got it stretched out even further east. So the Canadian has that rain snow line cutting right across Long Island before the low moves away to the east-northeast. The late afternoon GFS run has, there's your low right along the New Jersey coast, and then it moves it south of Long Island. The GFS continues to insist. You see how far west the GFS actually brings that warm air into Connecticut, and that was one of the reasons why that was another reason why I went lower. There's too much going on here that can make your forecast go wrong in so many different areas. I guess the one safe area is going to be northern New Jersey, northeastern Pennsylvania, and the Hudson Valley and points north. They got it the last time. It's probably for them. It appears that this is going to be a repeat performance. The colder atmosphere overall puts a lot of other places in play, but amazing. We're less than 24 hours from the start time of this, and we still have a lot of questions. I just want to real fast just touch on what's going on in the longer term. I really haven't given it a good look. Models were showing the possibility of something early next week. Now, this system's going to linger around with the block, so there's probably going to be clouds and some snow showers to deal with in a few places. And here comes the next system for, it looks like for Sunday night, Monday, going by to our south. The problem is that with this first system not getting out of the way fast enough, there really isn't too much room. You see the energy with the next system. I'll bring it back. Here's the lead system. Here, the lead upper low. Now that develops just east of the New Jersey coast tomorrow and lifts up, but then the main northern part trough drops down and rotates around, so that suppresses everything here in the east. And so when the next weather system comes diving into the plains and Midwest, it's there's not a lot of room here. You've got another trough that drops down south of James Bay, so that kind of keeps that suppressed into the southeast. So that's the plan. That's the plan at the moment, anyway. Now, I know Always Smiling was on there. They've got the yellow alert up for parts of Ireland again, and that is because of some snow and ice. This is not like what you just had, because the atmosphere and the pattern is changing. You do still have some residual cold air and some moisture interacting, so that's what you're getting, maybe a little bit of snow and sleet with that. But overall, over the next week or two, it looks like the flow is going to be more from the south, with these weather systems coming in from off the Atlantic. So that should be rain, and the Siberian connection that was there with the block has disappeared. So it doesn't look like you're going to get, maybe that was your last hurrah as far as very cold air is concerned, and that you can get back to seeing something resembling normal going forward. Okay, so let me come back to the front of the screen. I hope that gave everybody justification. Before I end tonight, I will put the snow map back on. I didn't call it heart attack snow. It wasn't me, Reaver 501. But you know what? That's a good point, though. With this heavy, wet snow, yes, I see where you're going with this. Nick Cortez, thanks for hitting Super Chat tonight. Really appreciate it. Does the coastal low forming south indicate the coastal will be more offshore than modeled, or does the further south formation indicates more of a coastal track, or it makes no difference? It may not make a difference. Anthony, the upper support the way it is, it might still wind up coast hugging. It's just that it may start coast hugging a bit sooner. I think what we're going to have to do is just wait to see how tonight's runs handle it, especially with the plane going out and dropping the drop zones to get extra data into this. So perhaps that might change the perspective one way or the other, or then again it might not. We'll know in a few hours when the next model cycle starts. You're in the 6 to 8 Shelly Man Studios in Bridgeport. That's the Weather Service's 6 to 8. I think I got it a little bit lower than that. Cobleskill got 39 inches last week. Amazing, isn't it? Do you have potential to boom in the DC area, Joshua Pan? I don't think so. I really don't. You know, a lot of cold air aloft, but the bottom part of the atmosphere is not that cold. Stephen Franco, good evening to you. As you wait for the snow on Long Island, South Shore might get, you know, that rain snow line, if it shifts 20 miles, there's going to be a huge, large area that's going to get a foot plus. But I think that, you know, that is a tough sell even under the best of conditions. So I don't know what my confidence level here is not very high. Fallen Angel, where are you asking about? Because that's important. Okay, you got to let me know what your location is. It's amazing how the GFS is probably going to be right with the storm. Maybe because broken clocks are right twice a day. I don't know that it will be completely right, Alcina. You know, it still might wind up bringing up rain too far north and west, which has been an error that the model has had over the last month or so. Thoughts on the ARW? You know, well, we can go back and forth on all of this. I mean, I don't know. There's just too many, you know, really, there's too many models, and everyone is going to give a different solution. The SREFs, which last night were very bullish, I mean, basically giving most places along the coast 6 to 10 inches, and more at the coast than inland, believe it or not. Then they cut way back to less than half of what it was giving last night. Then they came up a little bit this afternoon, so I'll be curious to see what the next round of SREF models do, which will be Those will be out in about a little less than 2 hours. So let me just bring up my snowfall forecast map one more time for those of you who jumped on late. This way you can take a look again and review. I am mostly lower than the Weather Service's forecast. I know I'm taking heat from snow lovers and snow weenies all over the place, but you know what? This is my forecast, and I'm living with it. Mostly rain, immediate coast, slushy, couple of inches as you start to work your way inland, 2 to 5 as you get closer to New York City, 5 to 7 in most of New York City in a 5 to 7 zone, extending down. Philadelphia, right close to that border between 2 to 5 and 5 to 7, which goes back down into south central Pennsylvania. Large area of at least 6 to 12, eastern and northeastern Pennsylvania, on up through northern and northwestern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, and into northwestern Connecticut. Amounts tailing down as we head southeast toward southeastern New England, southeastern Mass, Rhode Island, and the southeastern Connecticut coast. That's how I'm seeing it now. My cards are on the table, as at this point are everybody else's. Notice, you know, if I made that my early call forecast, and I really do not like to change forecasts, snow forecasts every 5 minutes or with every model run. It's ridiculous to do that. It does an absolute disservice to people to see so many different maps changing all the time. Mystery Gamer, thanks for hitting Super Chat tonight. Really appreciate it very much. Thanks for joining us here too. Awesome. Are they saying 12 to 18 inches for the Lehigh Valley? Possible, yes. I really want to see this whole profile, how it develops when we go through the evening and the overnight. The radar certainly is impressive enough. The southern part that represents the secondary looks much better developed than what models were indicating over the last couple of days. Danielo Yakubov, sleet possible in northeast New Jersey. You know, I don't know. I was discussing this with one of my colleagues about that, and you know, looking at the layers above the ground and underneath 5,000 feet, it looks fairly straightforward cold. I'll have to pull up a few soundings to see whether there's a warm layer in there someplace. But you know, last year in a storm that was in some ways similar to this and in some ways different, but the signature was not that different. There was a boundary of sleet between the heavy snow and the heavy rain, and that boundary set up just inland of the immediate coast, and it sleeted for hours in some places. It just was an out-and-out sleet storm. And then once the sleet stopped, and a lot of those areas actually went back to snow as the temperatures dropped down into the low and mid-20s, and it all froze solid. I don't think we're going to see that this time around. Might there be sleet? Sure. But I don't think it sets up quite the same way like that storm from last year. Nick Cortese, you want 50 to 60 degree weather? I think you're going to have to wait till after we get through the middle of the month. If this blocking pattern can weaken enough, then maybe we can get there. But I don't think we're going to see it any time in the next 7 days anyway. No, you're not. I call you snow weenies, Shelly Man Studios, but I mean that in a loving way, because, you know, after all, deep down inside, I am too. Okay, I get it, all right, and I understand, but you know, you have to, when you're doing this professionally, and I learned this at the very beginning, you got to get all your biases out and just forecast what's there, and not what you want. I had this battle today with someone over this particular subject. Because, you know, they see everything as a big snowstorm, and it just doesn't work that way. Okay, when it's in front of me, I'll forecast it. When it's tenuous, like it is now, I will tell you that it's tenuous, and when it's not there, I will also tell you that it's not there. All right, folks, I am going to say goodnight at this point, and we will be back tonight at between 9:15 and 9:20 on the Joe Cioffi Show on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Cioffi, and you should also check it from his page also, Joe Rayo Weather. Joe, obviously, J-O-E, Rayo, R-A-O, Weather, because that's his separate weather page. So if you liked mine, you should go like his as well. And in the meantime, you can check out, if you want to review those National Weather Service snow forecast maps, just go to my website, meteorologistjoecioffi.com, and click on snow forecasts, and they should all come up there. And mine is also up there too. It's visible on the homepage. Okay, have a great evening. We will see you tomorrow. Keep your fingers crossed that the forecast turns out the way I have it, and that there are no big busts. I'm probably going to bust for somebody somewhere, but hopefully not in a huge way.